Hello, my name is Adrian Hodge and welcome back to my show. Today we'll be talking about the news of the day without the stress. A little bit of a departure today. We'll be talking about something that's not an event, but a series of events, a trend. We'll be talking about polarization. I know things can feel a little strange. It can feel like the world kind of went crazy, but there's a reason for that, and we'll be talking about that, how we got here, why we got here, and where we go from here. To start, we'll talk about how our society was structured. We have a very individualistic society. We're very democratic. We're very open. We're very liberal in sort of the global sense of the word, not in sort of like the left-right sense of the word. We are very economically driven and very pragmatic. We're interested in solutions and just doing the easiest thing that makes the most sense. This approach has really brought us a lot, but it wasn't without cost. Every system has its ups and downs, whether it's sort of the old world European system, it's sort of like the old Chinese dynasty system, it's the shoguns of Japan. All these different systems had their positives and negatives. And our positives were, it really allowed us to sort of pursue our own aims on an individual level. It gave us a lot of say in how our government works. It gave us a lot of ability to generate wealth and come up with new ideas and respond fairly effectively to many, many different crises. The downsides were that we had very little attention paid to sort of the spiritual aspect of our country, of our existence, and of any kind of consideration for community. I mean, this isn't talking about, lamenting the old days and how everything was better 50 years ago. This was a design flaw present from the very beginning. This was present while the founders were still alive. It was just kind of assumed that these systems would maintain themselves. The founders said our Constitution was fit for a moral and religious people. It would not be fit for any other, and there was a lot of truth to that, but not in the way people think. A very long time ago, there was a Middle Eastern philosopher named Ibn Khaldun. He talked a lot about what people would call asabiya. It generally means kind of a fellow feeling, so that when you look at another American, regardless of creed or ethnicity or anything like that, you sort of recognize things within themselves. There's a shared culture, there's a shared sense of purpose, there's a shared identity, and that was kind of key, especially for our system continuing to function well. Without that sense of sort of fellow feeling or common direction, people tend to have difficulties with identity. There tends to be a splintering, not coalescing around a new idea or a new set of ideas, but rather, 1,000 different ideas and identities all being pursued at once, which is not the best environment for children to grow up in. Children need kind of safety and stability, which is why I think Gen Z has had a really rough go of it. This is not to say that things won't get better. They will. It's just to say that we had a pre-existing weakness to something like this, like a depleted immune system. Democracy, despite being far and away the best system humanity has discovered, should be viewed as what it is, the best of all bad options, by far, rather than some kind of mystical force. All systems of government should be judged by what they bring their people and what they ask of them. If governments and systems of government do not justify themselves to their people habitually over a long period of time, and you have to just keep doing it forever, the end result will be people no longer understanding why they believe the things they do, no longer understanding why they're doing the things they do, and the end result is people just kind of checking out and stopping giving a shit. I don't think we're there. I don't think we're particularly close to there, but it is concerning that things do seem to be trending that way. With that said, let's talk about a few of the important touchstones of the 20th century. There seems to be a cycle where we start to rise as a nation, and then we sort of plateau, and then sort of decadence and corruption kick in. Then there's a period of sort of collapse for a while. And then we start our rise again, and there's sort of like a boom and bust cycle. This may not just occur economically, but also culturally as well. Our art, the way we feel about ourselves, seems to go hand in hand with how we feel about our future. When we feel like we have a lot of hope for the future and we're looking forward, we make new art. And when things aren't so great, we tend to look more toward nostalgia. We look toward the familiar, but this may have something to do more with economic dislocation than just sort of a one-to-one rise in hope and economic prosperity. This is not to discount that is very likely, but just to look at it from a different perspective. During these cycles, there was a lot of economic dislocation. Whereas previously people would have like a strong ties to their community, they'd be tied to, their family members, their extended family in the place they lived. They would be tied to their church or synagogue or what have you. They'd be tied to community organizations like the PTA and, a Rod and Reel Club or whatever was there. And every time that we went through this cycle, people had to kind of uproot and form new communities, often very, very far away. They did this out of necessity. They did this to look for work. They did this so their kids would have a better life than they did. These moves were necessary, but the sense of community, the sense of belonging, the sense of purpose didn't always follow them. With these jumps, with these cycles, though they were necessary, that sense of common fellow feeling, sort of what asabiya is, began to fray a little bit. Still, things were going pretty great. We reached the moon, we invented the internet, we brought sort of democracy around the world, we won World War II, we won the Cold War. Things are going very well. We had our troubles, but we were all still moving together toward a common future and a common purpose. Even if we disagreed on what that was and we weren't always sure exactly what we were doing, we were still moving forward together. There were a few new events that kind of shifted this. Foremost among them was 9/11. In this, our nation sort of lost its innocence, and it kind of shifted the culture of openness and trust that we once enjoyed for so long. This brings us to kind of a recurring problem we've been having, which is the trouble with media. A lot of people say the media is biased in favor of this party, in favor of this ideology, and in a lot of cases that's true. We have media that definitely skews right, like Fox News. We have media that definitely skews left, like MSNBC. However, in this, I think often there's things that are overlooked, and that they both skew towards selling fear. Regardless of the issue or what side they're representing, they both had panic as a business model. If Donald Trump gets elected, it's going to be the end of the republic. If Joe Biden becomes reelected, it's going to be the end of the republic. Neither of those things are true. As negative as this business model was, it really couldn't hold a candle to what came later with social media. Social media is in and of itself not a bad thing. It allows people to express themselves, to reconnect with long-lost relatives or classmates, and just in general to keep in touch. However, the algorithms governing that media can have some very negative effects on us, and I think that's been the core of this wave of polarization. There was a great deal of research done over quite a long period of time of how to get people's attention and how to keep it. There's that old saying that sex sells. Well, it turns out that there's limits to that. If you show someone a photo of a very attractive person in a revealing outfit, their brain will respond to it. But there's limits to this. If you just keep showing them thousands of photos, or probably not that many, of sexually stimulating images and content, the brain will eventually stop responding to it. There's limits to how much you can use that to grab someone's attention. There's limits to how much you can use that to sell products. So through trial and error and through AI learning, machine learning, and through a great deal of research, they found something that could be used to grab your attention forever and could be used to sell products forever: outrage. Unlike nearly every other kind of stimulus, you can use a steady drip of outrage to keep someone engaged forever. The brain will just keep responding endlessly. This has an extremely negative effect on discourse in this country, as it incentivizes people to make more outrageous content to stimulate more outrage, and it also focuses people's attention on outrageous things, so that over time people start to think that those outrageous opinions are normal. They start to think that that's where the conversation is, and they kind of lose track of where people actually are in their day-to-day lives. It ends up with sort of the two composite factions that make up our body politics, sort of the liberal conservative, though again these are both liberal factions, both believing that the extremes of the other side are indeed the mainstream of the party. And while there have been, this has also allowed the extremes of those parties to pass themselves off as something that's pretty normal, and it's allowed them to make more inroads. This is not to say that they don't have important things to say or that they're wrong on every issue. It's just to say that this has helped them sort of advance their various causes. Our political system is fairly stagnant, and new ideas and new blood we would quite welcome, regardless of kind of where they fall on the classic left-right divide. This is not to say that having crazy people in government is a good idea, but that this might simply be part of the process of our politics shifting to whatever it will be. I believe that after this period of sort of interregnum, eventually we will have a much better, more responsive politics. And we've been through this cycle many times before, and I think together we can overcome hurdles like social media polarization and sort of the breakdown of community, loss of spirituality and sense of purpose. Those things in the past really insulated us against things like this, and without them, I think we're going to keep being susceptible to different waves of polarization and sort of strange political ideas, and we're going to have a government that's not able to focus on what really matters. The middle class is shrinking. The working class is more squeezed than it's ever been. There's people drowning under student debt. We have a severe housing shortage. And we still don't have a sensible immigration policy, a workable one. On top of that, our foreign policy has been a bit unstable. Regardless of how you feel about, the issues with Gaza or Ukraine, I think everyone can agree that the response has been a bit haphazard, contradictory, and uneven. I believe this stems from burnout from the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and due to an identity crisis. If we do not know who we are at home, we will not know who we are overseas. If we do not believe in ourselves and sort of who we are as a nation, we are unlikely to want to sort of branch out and play a larger role in the world. If that is even what we should do. Regardless of how we decide these issues, they do need to be discussed and they do need to be resolved for us to move forward. And not just any way, they need to be resolved in a way that gives people hope for a future, because people will not invest in a future they do not believe in. People criticize Gen Z a lot, it's normal for older generations to kind of pick on younger generations, but it does seem a bit excessive, and I think that hope would help them more than anything else. Otherwise, large numbers of people may not go for it when the clouds sort of do clear up, and they will clear up. It will be strange for a while, but they will clear up. The sun will shine on us again. The coming changing of the guard, where the boomer generation of politicians retires and a new political class takes its place, may provide tremendous opportunities for us as a nation. If we were to focus on specific issues instead of party affiliation or ideological affiliation, we may be able to incentivize the government moving towards more getting things done. Away from niche issues and more towards things that affect all of us together. If we could just remember that we are one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, I think that would be a hell of a first step. If that sounds a little corny to you, or you're just not sure how to feel about that, I think it's important to remember that a lot of what you see on cable news, a lot of what you are sort of fed on the internet, on social media, isn't real. If you trawl news stories, for tragedy and for acts of ignorance and bigotry and sort of closed-mindedness, you'll be able to find them pretty easily. That does not mean that's representative of your neighbors, of our nation, of sort of the world at large. Just talking to people in your community and to people you might not otherwise have struck up a conversation with, I think will do a lot more to sort of show you what the world around you is really like, rather than just seeing an endless stream of the worst things imaginable on the internet. And maybe if we did band together on issues, we could try to get Congress to sort of regulate these companies to move away from a model that deliberately stokes outrage and polarization and toward a more neutral one. I think the appetite for that is there and would help a lot. It's just that our current generation of leaders don't really understand that much about technology. In one of the hearings where they brought Mark Zuckerberg up, they actually had to ask him how to use their own cell phone and kind of explain Google to them. During another of these hearings, it was sort of found that his company had been deliberately targeting the self-esteem of teenage girls in order to sell them more makeup and diet stuff and stuff like that. Those problems can seem insurmountable, they can seem widespread, they can seem systemic, but it really wouldn't take that much change to kind of tilt Facebook away from doing things like that. Well, I've been Adrian Hodge, and I hope you've enjoyed my podcast. I welcome any and all feedback. And remember, sunrise is just one more night away. Thank you, good night, and God bless.